I'm 84 years old, and most days I wake up with the same thought sitting quietly in my chest. I did not notice my life while it was happening.
I do not mean that in a dramatic way. I mean it in the plainest sense. I was there, physically, but I was always somewhere else in my head, always assuming there would be time later to really arrive. I am not angry about it anymore. At this age, anger takes too much energy. What I feel instead is a steady heaviness, like carrying a bag you forgot to put down decades ago. You get used to the weight, but that doesn't mean it ever leaves you. I know I don't have much time left. I can feel that in my body more than in my thoughts. My mornings are slower. My hands shake when I button my shirt. Some days I forget what I stood up to do. These things don't frighten me the way they once might have. What unsettles me is how quickly the days still pass, even now, when there are so few of them left. When I was younger, I believed time was something you managed, something you scheduled, controlled, stretched when needed. I treated it like money. I spent it where I thought it would bring returns. Work, responsibility, obligation, the things that looked solid and respectable. In my 20s, I was busy becoming someone. That felt important then. I worked long hours, not because anyone forced me to, but because I wanted to be seen as reliable, useful, necessary. I thought that was how a life was built, brick by brick, one reasonable decision at a time. I wasn't reckless. I didn't ruin my life with obvious mistakes. That's part of what makes this harder to explain. I did what people praised. I showed up. I provided. I said yes when I was needed and no when something felt inconvenient or indulgent. I told myself I would rest later. I told myself conversations could wait. I told myself that relationships, if they were strong, would survive neglect. I didn't think of it as neglect then. I thought of it as focus. I remember coming home tired and quiet, sitting at the table while someone talked to me about their day and nodding without really listening. I remember thinking, just get through this week, just get through this project, just get through this phase. There was always a phase. In my 30s, the days were full and the years felt long. I had routines that gave me a sense of progress. Wake up early, work, eat, sleep, repeat. I measured my life by output, by what I completed, by what I endured. I missed small things without realizing they were small only because I didn't understand their value yet. A walk that never happened, a visit postponed, a phone call I meant to return. Nothing dramatic happened when I missed them. No alarms went off. Life just quietly moved on without those moments included. I assumed the important parts would wait for me. In my 40s, I began to feel tired in a different way. Not physically, but mentally. The kind of tiredness that comes from repetition, from days that blur together. I noticed time moving faster, but I still believed I could catch up. I told myself that once things slowed down, I would pay attention. Once the responsibilities eased, I would be more present. Once I reached a certain point, I would finally live in the way I imagined living meant. But responsibilities don't end. They just change shape. People drifted without arguments or goodbyes. Friendships faded because I didn't water them. Family conversations became practical instead of personal. I knew facts about people's lives, but not their inner worlds. I thought proximity was enough. I thought being around counted as being there. The cost didn't come all at once. That's important to say. If it had, I might have noticed. It came slowly, through accumulation. It came through missed birthdays that became missed years, through silence that became normal, through assuming someone would always be available later. I remember thinking, not now, maybe next month. And then next month became next year. Eventually, next year stopped coming. The moment when everything became clear did not arrive with drama. There was no sudden collapse or revelation. It came with a phone call I wasn't expecting, telling me someone I loved was gone. Not sick for long, not a drawn-out goodbye, just gone. I remember sitting down after that call and realizing there were things I had planned to say that now had nowhere to go. Thoughts that had lived in my head for years, waiting for the right time to be spoken. The right time had passed without asking me. That was when I understood something I had avoided my whole life. Time does not warn you when you are using it poorly. It does not tap you on the shoulder and suggest you reconsider. It just keeps moving. After that loss, I started looking backward more often. Not in a nostalgic way, in an accounting way, taking inventory of what I had spent and what I had saved. What I saw was uncomfortable. I had invested heavily in things that no longer remembered me. Achievements that sat quietly, irrelevant to the person I was now. Titles that meant nothing in an empty room. What I had neglected were the moments that could have softened old age, the relationships that might have made these years feel less hollow. Some people were gone. Some were still alive but distant, separated by years of silence that felt too heavy to bridge. I realized that being busy had felt like purpose, but it wasn't the same thing. It had kept me occupied, not fulfilled. There are things that cannot be recovered, not because they were taken from me, but because I failed to claim them when they were offered freely. Time with people who are now names instead of voices. Versions of myself that existed only in certain seasons, chances to sit still without guilt. You cannot rewind presence. You cannot retroactively show up. At this age, memories are uneven. Some days I forget what I ate. Other days I remember a single afternoon from 50 years ago with painful clarity. I remember moments I dismissed at the time because they didn't feel productive. Sitting on the edge of a bed, listening to someone talk. Standing in a doorway, watching light fall across a room. Being asked a question I didn't have the patience to answer properly. Those were not interruptions. They were the substance. I know that now. I don't say this to scold anyone. I don't believe in telling people how to live. Everyone is convinced, as I was, that their situation is different, that their postponements are temporary, that they are making a necessary trade. I only know what it feels like to reach the far end of life and realize you treated time as if it were replaceable. If I could speak to you directly, I would not tell you to do more or achieve less. I would not offer advice wrapped in certainty. I would only tell you what I wish I had known, quietly, without urgency. Pay attention to what you are present for. Not what you plan to do later, but what you are actually living right now. Notice who is still in the room. I thought I would be remembered more vividly than I am, that my efforts would leave a clearer mark. Instead, I find that memory fades in practical ways. People remember fragments, a habit, a tone of voice, a role. They do not remember the hours you spent working late. They remember whether you listened. Now my days are simple. I sit, I think, I wait. Sometimes someone visits, sometimes no one does. The silence is not cruel, but it is honest. I accept where I am. Acceptance is not peace, exactly. It is just the absence of resistance. I carry gratitude alongside regret. They are not opposites. They coexist. I am grateful for having lived a long life. I am grateful for what I did experience, but I no longer pretend that I did it efficiently or wisely. At 84, I finally understand the cost of all the time I wasted, not because I failed, but because I assumed there would always be more. There isn't, and that understanding arrives quietly when there is nothing left to distract you from it.